I'm here and I'm doing what I said I was going to do. And is it 10 out of 10? Maybe not. Maybe not. Is it a 7 out of 10? Yeah, maybe. But compared to not doing it, it's still a 10 out of 10.
If you're not willing to deal with the pain of losses, you aren't going to change your behavior very well. You need to have some pain and some discomfort, and losses lead to wins because losses create change.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, NLU Weekly Live Podcast, week number 121, live from Telluride, Colorado. This year's losses are next year's lessons. So full disclosure, if you are listening to this and it sounds a little weird, I am currently in our Airbnb. If you are watching this and you see Gregory the grizzly bear behind me, he is the new mascot for the week. Taryn and I are away. We literally just got our marriage license today, so as of Wednesday we'll be married, which is an amazing feat that we have accomplished. But, Alan, I said this before, I'm definitely out of sorts, but I don't know if there's a more appropriate topic for you and I to be talking on, because I would say that we have really built our business and our habits and our success and our characters on this through line. This year's losses are next year's wins.
Kev, I actually, before we got on the mics today, I created a super simple framework that I wanted to share with everybody. So when I say super simple, I mean there's only 4 steps. I know in the past I've created frameworks with like 21, 33.
Yeah, the quick 33-step process to accomplishing your goals.
So this one's only 4 steps, so you'll be proud of me. So imagine a clock. I also put it on a clock, Kev, so it's super simple. So imagine a clock. At 12 o'clock, okay, you set a new goal. At 3 o'clock, you are on the struggle bus towards that goal. Every new goal requires some form of struggle, some form of failure, some form of trials and tribulations. The struggle bus leads to 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, pain brings new awareness and positive change. And then the new awareness and positive change brings you to 9 o'clock, which is where you start to succeed. And then as you start to succeed, what you do is you get back to 12 o'clock where you end up setting a new, even bigger goal. I remember when Kevin and I first started, we were hoping for, 10 listens a day. And now we're hoping for 1,000 listens a day, right? And so on average. So the key here and the main point here is that you cannot win without losing. You've never heard of a sports team or an athlete or a business that never had down months or down weeks or down games. It's really not a thing, and I'll share this just to start out of the gate. Kev, I didn't know this early on in my coaching journey, but I've told you this recently. I figured out that the reason there's certain people that I don't like to coach, and at this point I'm very, very blessed. I have 32 plus clients, okay? And the reason I say plus is because group coaching members are technically clients. But the people that I really don't like to coach, and I'm just going to come out and say this, are the people who want to avoid the struggle part. The people who want to succeed without any struggle, to me, they're missing a large part of the formula. They want to win, but they never want to lose, and that's not real. It's not a thing. There's ways to mitigate losses. There's ways to be proactive so that the losses don't hurt as much. There's ways to hedge your bets. There's ways to plan ahead. But the one plan we can all count on is the plan not going to plan. And at the end of the day, you're going to struggle and you're going to have losses. And eventually, those losses will turn into lessons. Those lessons will turn into future wins. And I think that's... So this framework, Kev, I titled it. So, in The Lion King, they have the circle of life. I titled this the circle of success, because you cannot avoid the struggle if you want success. It's just the way it works.
I think one of the biggest things that holds people back is the fear of the fear of failure, aka having small losses. But when you aren't willing to have the small losses, you're actually cutting yourself off from having the great victories eventually. So I told you, Alan, as an intention, one of my goals during this travel was to try to find a lot of experiences that I could use as stories and lessons and examples. And we were staying in this beautiful Airbnb up in the mountains. And I haven't seen roundabouts, how we have roundabouts in Massachusetts. There's a lot of them in New England. There's not a lot of those in other places in the country. I haven't seen a lot, but there was 2 roundabouts on the way from our Airbnb to downtown. And I had Waze up on the navigation system, and I'm going, and I ended up taking a wrong turn. So I took a wrong turn, and I said, oh, damn, I took a wrong turn. I'm going to be a couple minutes late to pick Taryn up. But that quote-unquote loss created a lesson. Don't take that turn next time. And now I have the perceived discomfort of doing that, so that lesson will stick. I know that's a pretty simple, low pressure, low pain example, but just as an example, that is exactly what we're talking about. That quote-unquote loss, it never happened again throughout the couple days that we were there. So that is what we're talking about today. Losses create lessons, and lessons create new awareness, and new awareness creates a new opportunity for a new decision. So something simple like that. You take a wrong turn once. Imagine this. This is a good analogy. Imagine you're going to a new job for the first day, and you've never been to this building, you've never been to the headquarters, whatever it is, and you take a wrong turn somewhere. You're going to go back to that building the next day, and you're going to know exactly how to get there, or at least you'll know that turn is the wrong one. You might make another wrong turn the next day, but it won't be the same one as you made before. Oh, I genuinely believe that it's okay for the rest of your life. It's okay to make problems as long as you try to avoid making the same ones. Because if you're making the same problem over, or you're making the same mistake over and over and over again, that means you haven't learned the lesson yet. And that's one thing I try to live by.
Kev, I want to ask you a question, because I feel like at the beginning of this journey, you and I's relationship with failure has transformed quite a bit. And there's certain things I know that early in your podcasting journey you used to avoid losses like pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I remember there was the Justin Wren challenge, right? That kind of stuff. Can you share with everybody how your relationship with losses has transformed? Because, I mean, we take L's all the time at NLU. Most of the time, I'll just share this as well. So every Wednesday we have a team huddle for those of you who are new listeners. And we have 24 departments, and we rate each department from 0 to 10. And we either go up or down. We never stay the same. And at least 1/3, if not more, of those departments go down. And the reason why is because we didn't make progress. But we're learning from those lessons. And as long as the majority of the departments are making progress, we're in the green. But yeah, Kev, so at the beginning of this journey, I remember you used to hate failure a lot. And I think you've shifted that relationship quite a bit. And by the way, failure, what I mean by that is losses. This year's losses are next year's wins. So what's your relationship with losses nowadays?
I think that the reason I like this title is because for many of us, we don't take this year and then play it out into what it'll be like next year. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts for me is I understand that as long as we're still here doing what we're doing next year, our awareness will be way higher, which means we'll know way more. When you know, so this is my new, I think this is my new mindset and my new frame. When you know way more, you know what not to do way more. So in almost now, Alan, it's like, well, I'm glad I got that out of the way now. That's kind of how I try to think of it. And I had so many like thoughts when, if you are a listener and you're in the community, I do not like planes. And, we had to fly out from Massachusetts to Colorado, 4.5 hour flight. And I was thinking to myself that the process for becoming a pilot, how many mistakes do you think they make when they're in the simulator? Practicing how to take off, how to land, how to deal with certain winds, how to deal with turbulence. I'd rather just get the small mistakes out of the way now. I really would. And I think the other part of it too, Alan, is I feel safe making mistakes. Not just because of the team and the community, but I know, and I've answered this way before, I try now not to allow mistakes to get to my self-worth. Just because you make mistakes, you take L's, it doesn't mean that you're a mistake or you're a loser. It actually means you're winning in the grand scheme of things. So I think you've really helped me transition that from, look, losses today are totally fine as long as they're progressing towards the future that you want. I think you've helped me more than anything with that, as much as I hate to admit it.
I didn't know if you were gonna throw it. I appreciate it, man. I do.
I don't.
Why do you
I
think
can't, I can't keep things too serious. I gotta. Although I'm however many miles away across the country, I gotta keep it light, keep it friendly. So
always, Kev. Why do you think? I guess. Why do you think you avoided losses so much before? And I just want to be transparent too. I do think you were someone who really hated losing. I mean, you won your fitness show. You were so scared to lose. Yeah. And I was scared to lose mine too, don't get me wrong. And I did lose. I obviously wasn't scared enough, right?
But see, this is the interesting thing. Most of the stuff I did to win immediately, not eventually. I think that's the only difference is I only did the fitness show to win it. I didn't do the fitness show so I could become a more in shape human. I said, tell me what it'll take to win, and that's what I'll do, as long as it's within my core values. I think that's kind of part of it for me is I was playing such small, short-sighted games that it was like, well, I just want to win. I don't want to have to lose to win. Where you and I now are playing games, aka building a business and doing what we're doing that's going to take years and years and years. There's no such thing as winning every single day for the next 50 years. Like that won't happen. So I do think the time perspective has helped me a lot as well. In a way, this was the analogy I was going to use. I used to watch Fear Factor a lot. And one of the things that gave me the most anxiety is when they would be underwater and they would have to unlock a padlock within a certain amount of time. And when you're underwater, you only have so much time before you have to come up for air. I think that's how I treated a lot of the things I was doing back then. As this has to get done and I cannot fail this now. Because if I fail this now, it's going to be done forever. Where now I understand you can get another lock or you can get another key or you can try to make a pick. There's a lot more options than I think I originally realized. I think that's a big part. Having the time perspective has really helped me for sure.
I know that you had made 3 points before this, but I think this is a valuable insight as well. I think that one of the things that holds us back the most from understanding that this year's losses or next year's wins are the reason we hate to lose so much. And the reason we hate to lose so much, one of the big reasons, I think, is fear of judgment. Fear of being seen as a failure. As you know, Kev, I did a marathon on Sunday, and I put myself out there on the podcast saying I was going to do that. And while I completed it, it was brutal. And by the end, I mean, the first half was great, great pace, strong, going well, thought I was going to crush it. Like 3/4 in, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. The sun's really hot. I made the mistake of starting at like 9 a.m., 8:30 a.m. And so high noon, it was like 80, 90 degrees out. It was wild. But anyway, so the third quarter of the marathon, so I'm like probably 15 miles in at this point, and I'm starting to really struggle. My ligaments and tendons are hurting. My knees are killing me. My groin starts to flare up, which is an injury I've been dealing with for a while. And I started to like eventually do like from a jog to like a shuffle jog, and then a shuffle jog to like a barely shuffle jog. And then eventually it was kind of like a power walk. And at this point, I'm freaking out because it's like I told everyone I'd be able to do this, right? And it's like, oh no, like I'm letting everyone down. I'm letting myself down. This sucks. And then eventually by the end, it was literally like water, like Walking Dead style. But I did finish, right? And 105 laps on a track in the beating hot sun was horrible. But I am proud that I did it, and I am grateful that I did it. But I did have that moment of like, aw, I wasn't able to do it as well as I'd hoped, and I certainly wasn't able to do it as well as I told everybody I could. And I think that because of that, because of fear of failure, because of fear of judgment, I think we hold ourselves back from seeing what we're capable of. Because, I learned a lot from that. When you have 7 hours to yourself, it took me 7 hours to finish this thing. You have a lot of deep thoughts. And when you're suffering and you're in pain, everything gets put into perspective. So I have a lot of really good things that I took from this experience. But I would say fear of judgment is one of the things that holds human beings back more than anything, because they would rather not try and not lose, not fail, than try, lose, learn, and then win the following year or the following week or the following month or whatever. And so I guess prior to starting this podcast and the way you used to avoid the fear of judgment, and I certainly did too. Definitely. I still do. We all do. Just to a lesser extent than we used to. What would you say about the fear of judgment?
It's interesting because even when you're telling that story, I think the belief I have, or the feeling that I have, or the understanding I have, whatever you want to consider it, is anybody who says to you, I can't believe you weren't capable of running a marathon after you said you were capable of running a marathon, has probably never run a marathon. Because anybody else would say, wow, you tried to run a marathon with zero training, like that's pretty awesome. And you got as far as you did. I think that's an interesting thing, Alan, is the people who judge you the most harshly, if that is a word, are usually the people who have never stepped foot inside your arena. And I really think that's what's helped me is, and again, I don't mean this with ego, but like, I've done 1,000 podcast episodes. So if somebody reaches out and says, hey, you're not a good podcaster, it's like, maybe I'm not. I might not be. But go do some, and then at least you'll have the understanding, the awareness to say, oh, you know what? That was based on my awareness that I've never done it. Right? Speaking seems very, very easy when you're behind the scenes and there's nobody watching, but the second you step up on stage, it's different. Mm-hmm. It's different. So I think that this is what I would say. I think that you have to earn an opinion that actually impacts me. And I don't mean that with any ego. But in order to earn an opinion that impacts me, you have to be doing something similar to me. And in the beginning, it was very much like anybody could reach out and say, hey, the podcast isn't good, or that social media, or whatever, you're out of shape, whatever it is. And now it's very much like, well, unless you're doing what I'm doing, I can't take that too seriously because your awareness isn't high enough. I don't know what it's like to try to run a marathon, right? I have no clue, so I can only imagine, right? And I'm not doing it. I'm not interested. I don't want to do it. But I think that maybe the old me would say, like, egg on your face, Alan, for not doing it, when it's like, well, at least you tried. At least you tried. And I didn't try. I wasn't running on Sunday, right? So I think that's an important distinction.
Well, I had that moment. I just think it takes courage. I think it takes so much courage to try something and to be willing to fail. And if you're going to try anything great, you're going to screw it up. Like, honestly, I remember thinking that to myself too. Like, well, the first half went awesome and I was feeling it. I got a little, I came a little too hot out of the gate. And then Emilia got there around like lap 45. And I started like really, putting it on because obviously she's my baby.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of, I got humbled by that though.
A little
for sure.
showmanship. A little showmanship there.
Yeah, a little bit of showmanship. There's one video of me cranking, and like shuffle stepping, and by the end I could barely walk. Right, so
that's another good. I quit my job or whatever. Like Amy's in the back, and it's I used to work 9 to 5. Now I work 24/7. That's another good one there. You could use.
Dude, honestly, man. I thought about creating this meme of like two videos side by side. Me 45 laps in, crushing it, shirt off, feeling good, like kind of showboating a little bit. What you think entrepreneurship is, and then me at the end, like barely making it past the finish line. I thought about, that. And the meme that Kev's referring to is, I quit my 9 to 5. Now I work 24/7. It's just a hilarious thing.
I just want to say this though. Again, Alan and I'll just speak for myself. I've had so many opportunities to fail over the last 5 years. So I think for me, it's probably faster because every day we do an episode, it's like, this could go horribly wrong. Like maybe it's not like right now there's people outside. It sounds like there's a concert going on outside. Like that's a little bit of an L, but it's also, I'm here and I'm doing what I said I was going to do. And is it 10 out of 10? Maybe not. Maybe not. Is it a 7 out of 10? Yeah, maybe. But compared to not doing it, it's still a 10 out of 10. That for me, I think that's the biggest change. And again, I've just had a lot of opportunity to fail. I think that's very important. And you pushed me. It wouldn't be the same if it wasn't you and I doing this together, because I wouldn't necessarily walk into the failure like I do now.
What do they got going over? Got going on over there?
Sounds like they're knocking down the house. that I'm in.
Perfect. Kev, you had written a couple more points here.
Yeah.
The faster you make a mistake, the faster you learn the lesson. Think of success as a recipe. This year's losses are next year's wins. I remember when Kevin and I... Oh, my God.
It's wild.
I remember when Kevin and I first started going on other podcasts. We're going to power through it, man. We're going to power through it. For those of you who can't hear, it sounds like there's someone who's taking dishes. And if you've ever seen the movie Titanic, you know how the dishes like smash when the boat's tipping? It sounds kind of like that, Kev.
It's not
just
ideal.
So you know.
It's not ideal.
Let me just turn and ask you another question. Let's just make it easier that way. All right. So you used to talk about fear chasing all the time. First of all, what do you think are people's biggest fears when it comes to failure, when it comes to losses? Why do you think some people don't turn their losses into wins?
Hello everyone at G6. My name is Roberta. I'm glad to be connected with all of you. We had a wonderful last few months, encouraging each other, keeping each other accountable, especially Lynn. Thank you very much for being there. And it's been an amazing journey. One thing I wanted to highlight, what it was done for me, is it has helped me to reprioritize. I think I was suffering from people pleasing, and especially with this online space, everybody just coming to sell you whatever they are selling and their group and their funnels, whatever it is. And in being nice, there's a lot of time I wasted on things that are not in alignment with what I want to do with my life. I wasted so much time, and this accepting friend requests of people who are not in alignment with what you're doing, because we live in a world where everybody asks you how many followers you have, and they think that's where the value comes from. I am done with that. I'm rejecting friend requests and group requests that are not in alignment with whatever I'm pursuing. So this has been a life changer for me, because I realized how much time I wasted not being productive just because I'm being nice to people, and I'm done doing that. Because I've learned to prioritize things that help me become a better person. If someday in the future, 5-10 years from now, I want to pursue those things they were selling, and I respect the hustle, I may go back to those things. But right now, whatever it is I'm doing, I am not accepting any invite, anything that is not in alignment with my purpose and my mission right now. And I realized, as I said, how much time I had wasted. I thought I needed time management classes just to keep up, but it just was not for me. And it's been surreal, actually. Even when they message me and they try to be nice, I know all of those scripted sales pitches, and they try to be nice to you and say, we will help and with this and with that. I told one guy actually on the message, I said, I'm sorry, I hear what you're saying, but no, this is not for me, but thank you very much for reaching out, which I would have not done in the past. So this has been a game changer for me. Thank you very much for the group coaching. It's been an eye-opener, and I hope everyone's journey continues to rise.
I said this recently. I had and if I smile, it's because of all the noise. I had somebody ask me recently, this person is a new entrepreneur, and they said, what advice would you give yourself? And this is good. This is a through line for everything. I said, you're not going to win overnight. You're not going to lose overnight. And I think that's the thought a lot of people have is, really think about this. If I go on stage, or if I do this podcast episode, or if I do this social media post, or whatever it may be, and I get a lot of negative feedback, that means I'm done. And it doesn't happen that fast. That's not how it works. You can still get up and do it the next day. So I think that's one of the most important things. I just believe that we assume one mistake is the end. And then that breaks our spirit a little bit, so we're not willing to try it again. Because we're afraid the same thing's going to happen. It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
I think I do believe that's what it is. Remember, God, I don't know if they have the biggest.
Speaking of this year's losses or next year's wins.
Yeah, right.
You know, it's funny.
We're gonna have a house in the woods next time. I think that if you think back to, remember that speech I gave where I had the kids do push-ups?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that was a pretty big L. My biggest fear the next time was that was going to happen again. So what did I do? I tried to over prep. So that's what I would say is if you make a mistake, pinpoint where the mistake came from, for me, it was lack of prep. I tried to do what Alan did. I put 3 points on a cue card, on an index card, and I said, I'm good to go. This is going to be fine. And I burned through them in about 3 minutes, and I said, oh my goodness, pull the alarms. We are in a lot of trouble. What I would do in the past is I would say, I'm not a speaker because that went wrong. What I tried to do in that example was what went wrong and how do I mitigate it so it doesn't happen again next time. And I just tried to over prep. So that's what I would say. I think that when we fail, we don't necessarily pinpoint the failure. We just feel the pain. And we say, well, I can't have that happen again. When now you have the necessity to make a change. I used to say that all the time. It's way harder to win the championship back to back years because you don't know what to change. But when you lose, you have an exact thing to pinpoint and say, oh, you know what went wrong? Our pitching wasn't good enough. Or, you know what went wrong? Our shipping wasn't fast enough. Whatever it is. So I think it gives you a great opportunity to make 1% improvements as long as you can pinpoint and then stay committed to it.
So Kev picked this title, week 121, this year's losses are next year's wins. When I read this title for the first time, I was pumped about it because this is something that, we say often. We say this year's failures are next year's successes, or this month's failures are next month's successes, or this year's losses are next year's wins. But when I saw this title, I remember thinking to myself, like, losing and winning, it sounds so finite. It sounds so finite, but it's not. Just because you, and whatever your dreams are, if you're out there listening, holistic self-improvement, heart-driven but no BS for dream chasers. If you're out there listening and watching this, there is no one loss or one win that's going to make or break your careers. There is no one loss or one win that's going to make or break your friendships or your intimate relationship. I mean, it's possible, yes, if it's a catastrophic loss, like if you were to cheat on your partner or something catastrophic like that. But most of the time, what are we talking about? We're talking about making a mistake. Most of the time, we're talking about saying something you shouldn't have said, and then you go and apologize, and you eat the humble pie. Or you do something you shouldn't have done, and you go apologize. You say, you own it. I made a mistake. That's my bad. Or you forget to do the thing that you were supposed to do. So you break a promise, right? I broke a promise this weekend to one of our NLU team members. I felt really bad about it. I said I would show up. I didn't show up. I didn't give her enough time in advance, and she was very disappointed in me. And I owned that, and it's true, and it's definitely been because I've been spread too thin lately. But that one loss is not the end. That loss is a potential lesson. And the other thing that I want to share as well, two things. One is infinite game versus finite game. Life is an infinite game. It's technically not, obviously, because we are born and then we eventually pass on. But what I mean is that mastery, getting better, achieving your dreams, you're never going to actually get there and then be done. I'll never forget the quote of success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every day. Same with most things in life. Okay? The second thing that I wanted to share about losses and wins, what was it? First thing was infinite game. Second thing was... I'm honestly losing my train of thought.
I have a story if you want me to hold space, Jeff.
Please.
I told this, it was a while ago, but I think this is such a good analogy and an example for everything we're talking about. So one of our first clients we got at Next Level Podcast Solutions, it was literally like, whatever I have to do to make sure we get this client, I'm in. And I was like, I will come to your house and I'm going to set up all your equipment for you. And he's like, really? How much? And I said, just comes with the package. Don't worry about it. I'll be there. Tell me when works for you. And I went to his house and he ordered all the stuff. I sent him an Amazon list and said, just order all this stuff. Let me know when it comes in. I'll shoot over. And I go over and I think he actually, very trustworthy human being, because I think he left. He's like, yeah, I got a meeting. I got to head out. And I was like, okay. He's like, just lock up when you leave. All right, cool. So I'm there and I'm trying to set up this mixer. And for those who aren't necessarily podcasters or speakers, all a mixer is something you plug your microphone into. So right now I'm plugged directly into my laptop. It's just not very flexible. You can only have one microphone. If you want to have a high-level studio, you kind of have to have a mixer. And I said, I'll have the mixer set up. I'll leave you instructions on how to turn it on. When you get back, you'll be able to do it. And I plugged in the mixer. I started recording on his laptop, and for some reason, it sounded terrible. It sounded like what you just heard with that truck outside, but worse. It was like super staticky. I couldn't figure it out. I start YouTubing it. I'm Googling it. I'm like, all right, what's going on? All right, let me break it down. And I go to the other side of the room and I try another outlet, because sometimes outlets can be noisy. Believe it or not, didn't know that was a thing, but evidently that can happen. Nothing. Same thing. So I Google it and it says, well, if your house is old, you might have faulty wires and you have to get this different plug. And his house was built in the 1800s. I said, there it is. That's the problem. I ordered this like $40 plug. Doesn't work. I look again and it said, well, maybe your extension cord is jeffed. Perfect. That's exactly what it is. I order like a $75 extension cord. Doesn't do anything. I actually have it in my studio now. So I ended up leaving that day and said, hey, I'm going to have to come back because I can't figure out what's going on with this. I don't know why this is happening. He said, yeah, no worries. So I go back. And I kept troubleshooting and I kept troubleshooting and I kept troubleshooting and I kept troubleshooting. I found out that there's a button on this mixer that was turned on and it shouldn't have been turned on. Okay, fast forward a year and a half. I go to another client's house to set up her mixer. I know exactly what to do and I know exactly what not to do. And what took me 7 hours last time took me an hour. And I literally, in the moment, wasn't thinking that way. When I was having all these jeffings, I was like, this guy is going to hate me and he's going to find out I don't know what the hell I'm doing. But I was very, very grateful for that awareness later. Really think about it. I think, to Alan's point with the framework in the beginning, success is a formula. Just like a recipe is a formula. I figured out the recipe. I didn't have all the steps. And then when I, quote unquote, burned the cake, I realized, oh, I put it in for too long or the temperature was too high. Awesome. Let me change that next time. So I really do think it's like, if there's 10 steps in order to get something done, you should be okay with potentially failing 10 times. Because if you fail 10 times, you'll never fail the same way again. So that's what I learned in that. And it was a challenge, but now I know exactly what to look for. And I've set up dozens with people since then, and I've never had that same problem.
And you won't. You won't. And that actually, I did figure out what I wanted to say, Kev. So the second thing that I wanted to say was changing perception and changing behavior. You've heard me say this often. If you're a new listener, you have not yet. But I talk often about there's two changes you can make whenever you have a loss or a failure or a mistake or whatever. Okay? You can change your perception or you can change your behavior. Okay? Your perception would be changing the way you view yourself, changing the way you think of the world, that kind of thing. Changing your behavior is, I'm not going to do that again, or I am going to do this next time. One thing that I wanted to share with everyone, and the reason why losses are so powerful in this wheel, right? Set a goal, get on the struggle bus. Kevin was on the struggle bus when he was trying to set up that client's stuff. The pain that he was going through created new awareness. Okay, it's definitely not the plug. Okay, it's not that. It's not that. Okay, oh, wow, it is. Make sure that button is not clicked next time. What I wanted to share is that without any pain, without any discomfort, it's very, very difficult for the human body and mind to adapt or to evolve. There's a reason why my legs are killing me today, okay? And I guarantee you the next time I run after that marathon, as long as I rest and recover enough time, I promise you my body will have acclimated to running more effectively. The thing is discomfort and pain actually catalyze change. There's a scientific term called hormesis. I'm not going to get into it, but here's what I want to share. Everyone think of something, here's a good analogy that's relatable. When do you get your haircut? You get your haircut right at the time when it's finally unbearable enough to go get your haircut. When do you clean your house? When you know your in-laws are coming over, or your girlfriend's parents, or your boyfriend's parents, or your family, right? Pain and discomfort, which come from quote-unquote losses, actually get us to change. Kevin and I, you've probably heard about it, we did a 10 pounds in 10 weeks challenge 10 weeks ago. And it was actually today that I was supposed to weigh in at 180 pounds. He was supposed to weigh in at 170. He hit his when? Like a week and a half ago?
Yeah, maybe like a week and a half ago.
So that's one of the reasons I did the marathon on Sunday, because I weighed in yesterday at 179, so I hit the goal. But if it wasn't for us and the public accountability of sharing on the podcast. So we went on the podcast. We said, listen, we've really been letting fitness go for a while. We need to get our stuff together. We want to start a cut. We're going to do it together. Okay, Kev, we're going to do 10 pounds in 10 weeks. That's not an easy goal, okay? With everything else we got going on, it's actually pretty challenging. It was very humbling. 10 pounds in 10 weeks. Let's do this thing. And if one of us does not weigh in by August 1st, then we don't get to do the podcast on that day. And Kevin and I, after 1,050 episodes, 1,057 or something now, after 1,057 episodes, because we recorded a bunch before Kevin went to Colorado, what are the chances we're going to miss an episode? See how much pain is associated with us missing? This is why streaks are so important. Who here has ever had a Snapchat streak with somebody and you don't want to mess up the streak? Right now, I'm at 152 days straight of 30 minutes of exercise. I'm hurting right now. I ran a marathon yesterday, okay? Ran/run/walk/jog/crawled at the tail end. And I'm hurting. And Emilia is too, because she did a half marathon with me, by the way. She came in for the second half, Kev, which I applaud her. But she literally has her ankle wrapped. It was a little reckless. We figured it out. But we're going to go to the gym after this because I will not break my streak. I am not going to break my streak. The point that I'm making here is that if you're not willing to deal with the pain of losses, you aren't going to change your behavior very well. You need to have some pain and some discomfort, and losses lead to wins because losses create change. Everyone think of a big change who here has ever had someone take a photo of them that was extremely unflattering and post it online? And after you saw that photo, you were like, you know what? I got to start doing some positive changes here. I had back when I used to drink too much and too often, I had someone post a photo of me that was very unflattering while I was drunk. And I was so upset. I remember being so upset. But after that, I started hitting the gym and I stopped drinking. Not permanently, but I stopped drinking for a while after that. And then after that, I tried to stop drinking. I talk often about my quitting alcohol journey. It was like 8 years long. And it took me like 5 years to finally cut it. And I'm coming up on, I just surpassed 3 years recently at 1,200 days. So not 3 years yet, but I'm coming up on it. But my point is this: if I had never seen that photo, if I had never taken that loss, that perceived loss of having someone post a drunk picture of me online that I didn't want anyone to see, that I didn't even want to see, would I have ever made the change? Probably not. Losses this year lead to wins next year because losses this year create the changes necessary to win next year. And it's a cycle. It's a circle of success. Set a new goal, get on the struggle bus. Struggle bus hurts and is painful. Pain brings new awareness and positive change. New awareness and positive change brings success. And then you rest on the success for a while. We've all done it. And then you set a new goal thinking it's going to be awesome. And then you're back on the struggle bus. And like I said, the clients that want to avoid the struggle bus and just want to ride the party bus, I don't like to coach them, and I don't coach them because it's not actually going to create the positive change that you want. Thinking that you can win a basketball championship without missing game-winning shots, or thinking that you can, win in any sport without losing games, it's not real. In baseball, what is it, Kev? You're in the Hall of Fame if you hit 4 out of 10 pitches or something like that?
If you hit 4 out of 10, you're like the best player of all time. Yeah, I think it's probably there's people in the Hall of Fame who are batted like 300, so 3 out of 10. Maybe 3.2 out of 10, 320. Yeah. You can't win them all. I mean, that's really you hear some people say that sometimes, you can't win them all. That's true. That's true. The last thing, I'll end on this before we do Q&A. I remember this was like however many years ago, but I was in a ditch. I was down. I didn't feel good about myself. But I remember I found this post, and it said, what did it say? I never lose, I always learn. And I was like, oh, I love that. That's like a really good way to put it. Now, I think there's some ego in that, but I like the way that it made me think. It's not a loss, it's a learning experience. And as long as you avoid making the same mistake in the future, you'll get way further ahead than somebody who is avoiding losses. Because if you're avoiding losses, you're actually avoiding wins too. You just don't know it yet. You ready to bring the name? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you asked me yesterday when I told you I did the marathon. You said,
Yeah.
did it humble you or did it build your self-belief? And I said, it humbled me.
Yeah.
No matter what, when you try and you fail forward, you lose, quote unquote. And again, it's hard to say lose because you never really lose. You're going to gain something from it. You're going to gain experience. You're going to gain knowledge. You're going to gain wisdom as long as you reflect on the experience. And so I think most people genuinely, they're so afraid of the embarrassment of failure and losses that they never actually try to win. And the people who win the most are usually the people who are willing to take the risk of looking bad, looking dumb, asking the dumb question, saying the dumb thing, trying the marathon and screwing it up. Like trying and failing forward and learning and growing along the way. There is no growth without growing pains. There is no success without failing forward. There is no winning without losing your way to the podium.
Next Level Nation, I was on a podcast the other day, and this person said to me, I did a bunch of research on you, and your website is incredible. And I was like, thank you. The amazing Alessandro did a bunch of new upgrades, and our website is the best it's ever been. So my plug tonight is check out the new website. It's the same website, nextleveluniverse.com, but it is brand new. Alessandro has put a lot of work into it, and it is very much upgraded and updated up to our new level, our new next level. So check it out, nextleveluniverse.com. If you want to purchase our course when you are there, it is, I believe, $47 for our Next Level Live 2022 course. It is the most valuable $47 course in the world, according to me, in my belief.
And if you are strapped for cash, there's a free course as well called the
Correct.
Next Level 5 to Thrive on there as well. Also, I'm doing free coaching calls with listeners. If you've ever wondered, what is this coaching thing about? I don't understand. I don't know the value. I've never tried coaching. Give it a shot. I will not sell you anything. I love to meet our listeners, and it's going to be a half hour. I tend to go over. Shh, don't tell anyone. I tend to go over. As long as I'm not missing another call, which I refuse to do anymore. But free call with listeners. I'm not going to sell you anything. My only intention for those calls are to meet you, to get a bird's eye view of your life and give you a new perspective on what's possible for you. And I'm not going to sell you anything. If you ask me about my coaching, I will tell you, but otherwise you will not hear a word about my coaching. I just want to meet you. The link will be in the comments and or show notes below.